Hey, it's Theo, and thank you for joining me. Today I wanted to go over the best decks to climb to a legend, and yeah, I know I already posted one for this patch, and I usually try to do only one per patch, but a lot has changed. So many decks have emerged, and yeah, that I think that warrants a new video with a lot of new decks in it. As always, the codes will be in the description for you to copy, and if this video is helpful, please make sure to like and subscribe. Now let's get started with the first deck. It's definitely one that I think is being played the most at the moment. It's very popular, and that's for good reason, because it's extremely strong. It's the Cliff Dive Demon Hunter, and it's very similar to Arbor Demon Hunter before, where yeah, you want to play your 4-drop with Death Rattle, then resummon it, but instead of having the 7-drop Death Rattle and basically being immortal with all the armor, now we have a lot more kill potential in this deck because of the Cliff Dive, which can get you the Illidar Inquisitor or the McTheridan, and yeah, then it can deal a ton of damage. And that's not to say though this deck has no defensive tools, because yeah, this Bulwark is pretty incredible at staying alive. And besides that, also has a few AoEs with the Infiltrate, the Weapon Slumber, although usually I'd rather go for those Dread Seeds that are pretty good. But yeah, this just deck that's very consistent in yeah, getting that Bullhawk early, then basically being unkillable while killing the opponent with all those Death Rattles from the Bullhawk, and then the Illidari Inquisitor in the end. Then the second deck we have is the new Drunk Paladin. Now this is kind of like the Shaladosaur 3 Paladins we've seen before, but this one is less focused on getting that combo, but it's very focused on cheating out a lot of stats for free early on. And as you can see here, there's a lot of cheap spells, holy spells especially, and yeah, they can cheat out the Flickering Lightbot, and yeah, this one can come down very easily. I've seen this come down against me on turn 4 for 0 mana, so yeah, definitely very powerful. Also then we have the Sea Shanty. So yeah, this one as well, just very quickly, like turn 5 for almost free, it can come down. It's extremely strong. And if yeah, that doesn't work, but it usually does work, but if it doesn't work, you still have the Ursol Shaladosaur combo, which is yeah, incredibly powerful, as you probably know. Then we have another new deck since the patch, which is the yeah, the Handbuff Death Knight. It's been a meme for a while, but yeah, it looks like it's finally a real deck, and yeah, it's just really strong. It's actually one of the best counters, I think, to the Demon Hunter, because yeah, Demon Hunter, they have a lot of ways to like deal 3 damage, you know, but they don't have great ways to deal with huge boards, and yeah, that is what this deck wants to make, especially with the Nerubium Swarm Guard, right? If you buff this a bunch of times, you get 3 huge taunts. And that, yeah, that's pretty incredible. You can also do the Shambling Zombie Tank to get 2 of them, or just that much to get a huge one that instantly attacks. And yeah, just, yeah, Demon Hunters or a lot of decks just can't deal with all those stats. Also, we're running the Poison Breaths, either kill like a single minion with the hero power, or you can put it on the Darkthorn Quilter, and then, yeah, it usually clears the board when this is buffed quite a bit, right? Every time it hits one, it kills the minion, so that's a really strong combo late game. And then we have Protoss Rogue again. Yeah, still one of the strongest decks, still super powerful. And yeah, kind of just does the same thing as before, right? Just good early game with the Harbinger. Then they kind of transition into mid game with the Scoundrel that cheats out a Void Ray. That's a really good tempo. And then you try and get Artanis on board like a turn 6-7 with that Scoundrel mini. And then yeah, you can very quickly kill the opponent with the Templars that can do a lot of damage. Can be hard to kill as well for the opponent, especially if you yeah, had all that early tempo with those Void Rays. And if you need against like a slow deck, you can also wait a little bit for the Sonya combo and potentially get like 4 Archons in a turn, and that should be able to win most slow matchups. Then we have another rogue deck, which is the Pirate Rogue deck, and yeah, this one also has been pretty popular, and yeah, it's really strong. It's running a bunch of pirates, but most importantly, it's running the Bargain Bin Buccaneer. This is really the MVP of the deck, because there's a lot of combos with it. First of all, you can yeah, play this with the Toy Boat to summon 2 or 3 cards with the Lucky Comet, because yeah, Lucky Comet on Bargain Bin Buccaneer is really strong. Also, Lucky Comet has 60% chance to find the Buccaneer, so yeah, most of the time you will get that card. And it's especially powerful with the Crystal Cove. Like you play Crystal Cove, and then the next turn you can have the Bargain Bin Buccaneer, possibly with Lucky Comet, right, and get 3 5/5s with Rush. And yeah, that is really good. Also, you can combine this location with the Water Cannon. So all these pirates that you summon, you can go face as a 5/5, and yeah, just this deck just deals a ton of damage. And if your opponent ever leaves up a minion on board, you can also give it Wind Fury, potentially with the Shaladosaur buff to yeah, deal a lot of damage. And as always, there is a Zarimi Priest amongst the best decks, and yeah, still, it's just mostly an OTK deck. You're not really gonna win in many other ways usually. And yeah, the OTK though, it does really well, usually right by turn 8. The deck has a lot of draw, and by then, yeah, you've drawn a combo of Neralax into Zera into double Briar Spawn, Zarimi, and yeah, it's pretty much a game over for everybody. I don't think really any deck can consistently survive that combo by turn 8. So either you have to get lucky that they don't have it, or kill them before that. And yeah, if you want to try and beat them early, there's a Fly Off the Shelves, which is very powerful with the dragons. And then later in the game, we've got the Shattered Rune or the repackage. And yeah, they can survive quite a bit. And then, yeah, just wait basically until they get that huge combo. That's basically unbeatable once the priest gets to it. And then we have the Imbue Druid. Yeah, not much has changed from last week. I think it just changed the Malorn instead of the Zephyrs. But yeah, overall, it's still the same deck, right? You still want to go for early tempo with this deck. It's not really a late game deck despite that hero power. But you really with this deck want to have that early tempo. Just get a bunch of 3/3s, 4/4s, 5/5s. Early on, a lot of decks do struggle with those consistent stats early on. So that is really where the power is, the mid game of this deck for that tempo. And then sometimes you can go into late game depending on like random spells. Maybe you get a photosynthesis some late game. But generally, yeah, you don't have too much late game. So you don't want the games to drag on for too long. But if it does, you still have Shalarosil Malorn for some incredibly powerful late game cards. And then we have the Menagerie Death Knight, and yeah, this one, it's a really cheap deck, but it doesn't take away that it's very powerful, because this deck can be very aggressive and push a lot of damage very quickly. Obviously, we have some early game cards, the 1-drops, especially a card like the Mosquito. If your opponent leaves this up for a turn, yeah, every board you have gets incredibly scary, and you have a lot of minions that are very sticky with Murmur or the Brittlebone Buccaneer, all your death rattles that you have can be really annoying to deal with. Also, we've got Eliza, which you can also give the extra reborn with a Brittlebone Buccaneer, and then make your Ghoul's Knight incredibly scary, right? If this gets buffed twice, that's 15 random damage, and yeah, that is quite a bit. Just like the other 15 random damage that the Horizon's Edge can do. And also, let's not forget about the Menagerie Jug, because this is quite a good card since the buff. Just it has a lot of stats for 5 mana, especially when you have some on board, right? Its stats basically have charge, and it is quite a bit. And yeah, this deck just has tons of damage to win games pretty fast. Then we have the Handbuff Hunter, and yeah, this deck has dropped a couple of spots compared to last time, but yeah, it's still a good deck, and you can still win games extremely early with the reserve spot on one of your minions. We've got the Mythical Rune Bear, which is the main target to hit with all your buffs. This card scales incredibly well, of course, because you get 2 of them. Now we have 2 other minions. First of all, Ranger Gili, the card you basically never want to be drawing. It's awful. But yeah, you have to run it obviously as the tourist. And we've got the Wisp. So yeah, if you don't draw the Rune Bear, you can buff the Wisp and then play it very early for cheap, of course. Or if you do have the Rune Bear, you can just dump it from your hand and leave the Rune Bear as the only minion in your hand, so that's why it's there. Also, this deck can deal a lot more damage than the other builds usually, because it's running the Jungle Gym combined with the RC Rampage, and yeah, you get quite a bit of minions on board, maybe more than the opponent expects from a Handbuff Hunter. And then, yeah, you can push a ton of damage with the location, with the weapon you got, with the... Even this one can deal 4 damage, so you usually want to go for Rush. Just yeah, a lot of damage from hand, and just works really well in combination with those big early minions that you can get. And then we have the Ashamane Rogue, as you could probably guess from the name, it's very much about Ashamane. Although that isn't to say that he can't win without it. Of course, we have the Harbinger, which can win in the early game. You've got the Zephyrs to maybe stay alive or get some burst. Also, we got the Twisted Web Weaver, so you have this card you can draw a lot and get quickly to the Ashamane. Then you kind of try and empty your hand, right, and then play Ashamane, bounce it with Shadow Step or the Web of Deception, and you just play Ashamane over and over. You're basically playing with the opponent's deck, but yeah, you do it a lot better because it's all -3 mana. And then we have the Starship Warlock, and I really enjoyed playing this deck. I also have a video on it if you want to check that out. But yeah, I really enjoyed playing this. It's very fun late game deck. And yeah, it has Wheel of Death, but you really don't need it in most matchups, to be honest. It's most matchups, it's really about just surviving, kind of similar to the Blood Death Knight. But instead of really relying on Kil'jaeden only, you have Kil'jaeden and the Wheel. So you kind of just beat every deck that wants to play the Kil'jaeden, because the Wheel just usually wins faster than Kil'jaeden. And you have a lot of cool combos you can do in this deck. I mean, we've got Curse Campaign, which you can go throw the Starships, especially nice on like Arcanite, but also on Ancient of Yore. So you get a bunch of them again. We also have Eternal Layover as a great clear in combination with Ultralisk Cavern. Also, it can be great in combination with the Ancient of Yore, because yeah, if you reborn this one, it will just go back to being a dormant and yeah, draw you another 2 cards of 10 armor. And yeah, that's what's really strong about this deck. All the armor gain you can get with this deck, and you can make it really tough for your opponent to ever kill you once you get going. Then we have the Starship Death Knight. Now the other Blood Death Knight deck, it's got a little bit weaker with the matchups. It's not as good against the top 3 decks we have now, such as the Demon Hunter. Well, it's really good against rogues. Yeah, the meta didn't really change in its favor. So now I think the best slower Death Knight deck is the Starship deck. And not much has changed here. You still just want to curve out those Starships ideally and just yeah, make a big Starship deck. You can launch it. You can then possibly give it Reborn with Orbital Bone. That's insanely good when there's a bunch of 10 drops coming out of it, and then you can get multiple of them. And just the late game stuff, right? We got the clears. We've got Kill Jaden and Horseman for the very late game if you don't win by then. But yeah, usually those Starships, that's really what wins the match, because just most decks cannot deal with a bunch of 10 drops on the board. And then we have the Protoss Mage, and this seems to be the best Mage deck at the moment. And it still does what it usually does, right? Is just survive until you can play that Colossus. And yeah, a lot of ways to survive here. Got the Sleet Skater to gain armor, Ace of Yore again in this deck. Lots of armor also with the artifice. We've got the shield battery. Then you can copy maybe the spells with the pupil, and yeah, just gain tons of armor again while surviving until you get to play the Colossus. And yeah, this card, yeah, incredibly powerful. Your whole deck is built around it, and for good reason. And just in case 2 of them don't win the game, then yeah, you can also Brewmaster them to have 2 more. And yeah, good luck to anybody surviving 4 times a Colossus that deals over 20 damage each. Then we have the Hydration Warrior. Now I think Terran Warrior is still playable, but yeah, this one is kind of new, especially with the Tortilla, so I wanted to highlight this one. So it might be something you want to try out. So yeah, instead of the Terran cards in this deck, we're now running yeah, the Tortilla, we're running the Cubicle, running the All You Can Eat, just trying to cheat out the Tortilla with the Chemical Spill. And yeah, it's really good against the Demon Hunters because they just don't have a good way to deal with Tortilla. They usually try and deal with big minions with red card, but yeah, Tortilla is elusive, so they can't do that. And then usually they don't kill it immediately, right? And then you can maybe Cubicle it, and then yeah, it basically instantly wins the game. You have no way of dealing with that. And besides that, just kind of has the same late game cards as a Terran Warrior with cards like Kill Jaden, right? Ziliax and the Hydration Station. And yeah, instead of getting the Starship with Terran Warrior, you now get Tortilla back, which yeah, isn't too bad of a trade. And then the last deck I got for you is the Murmur Shaman. And Shaman hasn't been doing too well, and this seems to be the best deck you can play. I still faced it sometimes in High Legend. And yeah, it still just scams with Murmur. That's all this deck is about, really, is get to that Murmur turn. Turn 8 usually, right? You go Murmur, and then you play the location, and then you play Zara, possibly in combination with Shadow Block, get tons of mana, and yeah, get a full board with 8 drops that you can't target, get a head full of Wild Gods, and have full mana. And then yeah, if your opponent somehow clears that board, you just can spam some Wild Gods with so much mana, or Marine cards, and yeah, just incredibly powerful once it gets to that point. It just yeah, with the nerf though, it's quite a bit slower getting there, and that's really hard to deck. But yeah, this is the best Shaman deck of the moment. And that is it for today's decks. Please let me know what you think of them, how you've been enjoying the current meta. Thank you for watching, and until next time.